What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 134 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends, or click on the support link in this episode's description. Your donation of any amount could change a life. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled, Choose Life. Welcome back to episode 134 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast entitled, Choose Life. In this episode, we're really going to look at choosing a lifestyle that results in life, not death. So my question to start out is, can you see the death in a lifestyle of addiction? Can you see the death of dreams, the death of relationships, the death of families, the death of communities and whole nations as a result of addiction? Can you see the death of careers and a future and hope to even get out of situations? Well, if you can begin to see that, then my challenge in this is also to recognize, as you're sitting in whatever situation you're looking at, to be able to see evil as evil before it tempts you to participate in it. You got that? So that's my definition of discernment. So we really want in this episode to make a plan to grow in discernment so that we can see death before we get drawn into it. We can see evil as evil and choose life and choose good. So let's get on with that and let's make a plan to choose life. The first step for me is to recognize. And by that I mean recognize the fire of addiction that brought death and destruction into our life and our relationships. Can you see the damage, death, and destruction? I hope so. So let's evaluate it. And the first thing I'd say as we're recognizing the fire of destruction that addiction brought is we need to look at what started the fire. So just like fire investigators try to determine how fires begin by applying the scientific method, and then forming a conclusion about the fire's origin and cause. So the steps fire investigators go through is first evaluating the scene, then documenting the scene by taking notes and photographs. Then they collect and process the evidence. They interview witnesses. And, a witness may know the cause of the fires, but may be reluctant to share that information for fear of also being blamed or included in it. So again, this first step is really saying, how do we recognize the fire of addiction in our life, in our family? And I think if we follow those steps that fire investigators do, that we'll have a good start in getting into that. And throughout this episode, I'm going to use words from the Bee Gees song, Stayin' Alive. So for this step of recognizing the fire, I want to use these lyrics. I've been kicked around since I was born, and now it's all right, it's okay, and you may look the other way. We can try to understand the New York Times effect on man. Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you're staying alive, staying alive. Can you hear what I'm getting at in those verses as we recognize what caused the fire? What's the origin? For some of it's we've been kicked around since we've been born. For some of us, it's people seeing our pain and our suffering, but just looking the other way. For others of us, it's the effect of, the Bee Gees say the New York Times, but let's just say it's the effect of the media, the effect of culture on our life. So that's what we need to get at. And then finally, as we gather all that information, it's important to sit down with a coach or a counselor to sift through what has been learned including the witness statements, the fire response records, the forensics, the documentation, again, tying it into the fire investigator, and try to create a timeline that you can trace back into the origins of your addiction and how it affected you and how it grew. The second step, and I'm using R's for this, the second one is revive. And to me, once you've recognized what caused the fire, we need to make that decision. Again, we're choosing life. We need to make that decision to restore life or consciousness to ourselves, to find a way to be reawakened and get new strength, to rouse us from the sleep of addiction, to refresh our emotions that have been dormant so long in our addiction, so that we're able to even see with different eyes. And for many of us, as the fog clears and the cobwebs disappear, it's like seeing clearly for the first time. And as a result, this revival step, this reviving step, often involves major paradigm shifts, as things that we grow up with as normal, or things that were acceptable in our culture, or things that we become accustomed to that we now just feel blasé about. We're unimpressed with or indifferent to something because we've experienced it or seen it so long before. Well, all those things, all those old normals, all those acceptable things, all those blasé things, we need to start seeing with these new eyes. And we need to see them clearly to awaken our senses to what's really going on. We can no longer just choose to be passive if we want to be clean and sober. We have to be active and revived. And I'd like to use the words from a hymn, "We Will Choose Life." It says, "In an age of passivity, we will make this choice to be enjoyers and partakers of this life. We must fight to maintain and enjoy this life every day." So right up front, when you're choosing life, when you've recognized the damage and you've chosen to be revived, we have to say, I want to be someone who partakes in life, who enjoys it, and I'm going to fight to maintain and enjoy my life every day. The third R is remove the rubble. Yeah, when we see the fire damage that was caused to what was our house of life, so to speak, we need to start deciding what rubble must be cleared away. This thing's burnt down. And what is the rubble? What does the word rubble even mean? Well, Webster's dictionary says it's a miscellaneous confused mass or group of usually broken or worthless things. Can you hear that? The rubble from your addiction, from the fire that destroyed your life and your lifestyle, is a miscellaneous confused mass or group of usually broken or worthless things. Wow. So that's deep. So we need to get about removing the rubble. We need to do what we can. We may need to call a collecting agency, a rubble disposal company, because there's so many large amounts of waste that need to be taken out. And sometimes in recovery, that's the role of our coach, our sponsor, our mentor, to help us remove that rubble and send it on its way. And the Bee Gees lyrics from Staying Alive that I'd like to tie into this step are, feeling the city breaking and everybody's shaking, and we're staying alive, staying alive. Can you see in this rubble the city breaking and everybody's shaking as they're walking around? And there's so much rubble that you need to remove before you even define where your new life's going to be or what it's going to look like. The next R is raise the residue. That's R-A-Z-E, raise the residue. And raising involves, again, looking at Webster, bring to a complete end the physical soundness, existence, or usefulness of something. You got that? When we raise something, we remove all the physical traces. We remove the very existence of that building and the usefulness of that building because it's been damaged in fire, and for us, the fire of addiction. So now that the rubble has been removed, we can see the residue that is lingering that we must destroy. This can involve digging up foundations that had their basis in addiction, the thoughts, beliefs, and lifestyles that became our new normals in addiction that we didn't grow up with, but that we've matured into in our years or decades in addiction to the point that we assume they're a good foundation. But the reality is those foundations need to be raised. They need to be completely dug up and removed because they've got no usefulness, no soundness in our new lifestyle. And to pull from the Bee Gees' Staying Alive, the lyrics I chose for this one are, well, now I get low and I get high. And if I can't get either, I really try. You know, it's all right. It's okay. I'll live to see another day. And I think the foundation in there that we need to be able to raise, that we need to be able to dig up and destroy, is that we're just living day by day. That whether we get low or high, or we can't get either, we just try to make it through another day. That's not life. And I'm saying this episode's about choosing life and not choosing to just live another day, but choosing to create a new life. The next R is rebuild and restore. And in this, it's looking at making extensive repairs as you're rebuilding, as you're reconstructing the new you. And this involves like character development and moral regeneration. We're not just remodeling, but we're making extensive changes. We're trying to, in the restoration part of this, get back to what our original plan and purpose was, and to find that former position or former condition we had before addiction, that we can restore peace into our life, that we can restore ourselves to an unimpaired position. You get that? No longer impaired by our years of addiction, and to be the new and improved model, right? Not just one who looked like the old guy, but the new and improved model. So the lyrics I have from the Bee Gees' Staying Alive are, life going nowhere. Somebody help me. Somebody help me. Life going nowhere. Somebody help me. I'm staying alive. And I think the key for this is we don't want to get stuck in that just clean and sober position where our life is still just going nowhere. We need somebody to help us to make those extensive repairs, to guide us on the reformation, the restoration. You know, what changes need to be made? How do we find our peace again? How do we become the new and improved model without an impairment from the past? We don't want to be the walking wounded. We want to be the fully restored and renewed. And the final R that I have for today's episode is release and celebration. I believe all of us should figure out how to celebrate when we know we got there. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions here. The first one is do something creative. Write a poem, a spoken word, make a drawing, write a song, something that celebrates the new you, this new restored rebirth, whatever you want to call it, that took place. Second example of what you could do to have a celebratory release is to make a reminder for yourself, an altar, a place that you could always go to remember the past in a way that reminds you that how far you've come, not that you're still stuck in the past, but it refreshes you and refocuses you because you can say, I'm not that guy anymore. Or it could be just a place that makes you feel alive to remind you, hey, wake up, I'm getting a bit lethargic here and I need to get my booster shot or what have you. And the final suggestions would be truly release something in this celebration. Release your past. Release a balloon into the sky. Write on it or put in it whatever you want. Some cultures release floating lanterns in the sea. You can read old books and hear times of when people released a bottle with a note in the sea. Or you could write down and burn or bury those parts that you want to write down to release the old self in you through any of these steps. And as you release the old self, know that at the same time you're releasing the new you. Choose life. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you'd like to join an online group or get one-on-one counseling to help you as you decide to choose life, please message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, www.fromatod.org, and click on the contact page. You can keep in touch with what we're doing in From A to D by following me on Instagram at davidfromatod. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.